Welcome to episode 57 of Rubbish Talk with myself, Alistair Meldrum.
And myself, Jane Bond.
And we're both very slightly croaky, Jane. We've both had the lurgy for rather too long, haven't we?
Yeah, I've got this awful cough and it's just not going anywhere. Apparently, after 3 weeks, you can start worrying about it. So I think it's on Friday is 3 weeks. So after 3 weeks, if I still got it,
Well, I'm in. This is me going into my third week, unfortunately. And I was feeling good Friday morning. I was feeling great, and then I went home Friday night, and I was feeling rubbish again. So hopefully we'll not do too much coughing and splitting, and if we do, hopefully Mia will be able to edit it all out. So this week we have Anthony Burns. We call him Tony for most of the episode, who is the Chief Operating Officer for an organisation called ACS. And as usual, more about Tony at the end of our brief intro. So, a wee bit of news. So, CWM have just issued a report that there's been between 120 million and 346 million of social value when we actually reuse waste rather than recycle it and so on. This is, absolutely fascinating in terms of quantity, and there's probably a huge opportunity to increase that way above these figures, I would think.
I might have to go read the report, but what does that mean, social value? How do you measure 120 million and 346 million of social value? What does that mean?
Well, this is always the challenge with reuse, isn't it? Is how do you measure the saving? So when you recycle something, you can measure a tonnage and you can measure a value. But if something's passed, if I give you my old Hoover to use, how's that measured?
Is that classed as a social value, is it?
Well, I would think so. So it's saving you have to buy a new Hoover, isn't it?
Yeah, that's very true.
How do you quantify that? And I think that's always the problem with reuse. And I think mainly it's not-for-profits that are involved in the sector, and this is always a challenge as to how they value the work they actually do. But I think gradually with some of the bigger companies now running reuse shops at their household waste recycling centre sites, thinking back to some of the stuff Gordon Fergus was telling us, I think that's where, I think maybe the data is starting to come through to show the value. But as always, we'll link to the report, the CWM report. If anybody is interested, we'll share the link for that.
Because there was quite a lot, when you listen to our chat with Tony Burns, there was quite a bit of social value is coming out of his operations. So, we just got to keep listening to find out that. So I had a webinar last week, which was really interesting. It was with HSE and UCATA, which is a UK Asbestos Training Association. And basically it was HSE talking about the update to the ADR guidance. I'm not gonna do a
You're not going to shout to the version that
I'm not gonna and I'm not gonna do an acronym thing for ADR because it's French, and it's just remember it's to do with the transport regulations, and they update every 2 years, and there's a 2025 update, and there's changes to batteries, also changes to asbestos carried in bulk. So it's worth having a look on that as well, on the fact that there's now need for container bags. The maximum load is 7 tonnes total. There was loads of questions from the webinar, and they're going to compile a list of questions and answers, but I was really interested. So just thought I'd add that.
So the summary is, if you move asbestos by road, you need to, and you're not up to date with the new ADR regulations, you need to phone a friend. As in,
yes,
give Jane a phone. Give Jane a phone. Just Google on the website, you'll find it.
Yeah, and so that was interesting. But I'm going to go back to the last episode, Rebecca, and she was on our Rubbish Talk podcast, and she was from Waste Aid, and they're the international NGO based in the UK. But she was out in South Africa and working in South Africa and Uganda, I think India as well. And she was amazing, and she was so enthusiastic. A lot of the time, you don't get people enthusiastic about their jobs, but she was really bubbly, enthusiastic. And one of the things they were talking about, obviously, there's different issues and all that sort of stuff, but at the end of the day, recycling only works if there's a market for it. So you can recycle as much as you want, but if there's nowhere to put it or nowhere to take it or nowhere to reprocess it, then, you know, there's not a lot of point, is there? It has to have a market.
Well, that's where the UK is struggling about with plastic, with the sites, plastic sites shutting down. I was sent, I had a running pal of mine sent or shared on social media, and I stupidly get involved one Friday night. So he shared
After too many glasses of wine,
No, I've been, I've been good, Jane. I've been just over 6 months with no alcohol. So I'm in a good. So I had no wine, so no excuse for getting drawn into the Facebook debate. But he shared a New York Times article about recycling. It was basically making the story that recycling is a waste of time and it's a fraud and it's this and that. And there was so much wrong with the article. It was quite a long article. There were so many sort of half truths in it and so many things that were not right. It was just like, it was quite painful. But I did go back and try and sort of explain some of the complexity of it. And I suppose that brings us back to, why are we doing this podcast? We're doing this podcast because the waste industry is complex. There are recycling, it does only work if there's a market. So if you look at the UK, pretty established market for glass recycling, paper and card, all these different things. But plastic is one of these sort of quite problematic areas. And I was up at a big recycling site on Friday there, and really complex facility in terms of sorting plastic with lots of technology there. But for example, they'll separate out the HDP milk bottles predominantly. But what they were showing me is things like, the complexity they've got to deal with is things like Cravendale milk that makes a bottle white. So it doesn't get picked up by the tech. So it's like you're almost needing tech that picks up HDP bottles, normal ones, plus whatever random colour the manufacturers like Cravendale want to make it. And then you've got the added complexity that if you're trying to make food grade plastic or HDP, how do you split the food grade, the milk bottles from the non-food grade stuff? So it just shows the sort of complexity of it.
But how do you do it? I mean, if you're looking at food grade plastics that you're going to recycle and make back into food grade plastics.
Ideally you would only want HDP milk bottles. But most of the sorting tech will pick up anything HDP milk bottles plus anything that looks like or anything that picks up like an HDP milk bottle. So you get various, you'll get stuff you buy out of B&Q for repairing your floor or something that'll be an HDP bottle. So
which isn't food grade.
No,
obviously.
It's not food grade. To take things it is. So you're almost left with putting the stuff back through the plant to try and almost to clean it up and only get the food grade stuff. So I think these are the sort of challenges that are going to become more and more common as manufacturers want to use the plastic. How do we actually clean it up? And again, the other thing that was really obvious when we were going around the facility was the chaos that plastic films cause in the process. It's just that, and it did get me thinking about, Dano Robotics with their wee robots, whether, you could program a robot to pick up non-food grade HDP. The tech will come, but, at the moment there's challenges there. So it's like, let's get every manufacturer using the same type of plastic for milk bottles, for example, and not have manufacturers doing different random things.
Yeah, not colouring them white.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's like with anything though, is that you colour them white and they stick out on the shelf.
Well, that's the suspicion.
It's a marketing thing as well, isn't it? So
the suspicion is that's how they do it. And anyway, much more important things. Donald Trump, who must have lots of important things to do, is, I believe, signed an executive order to ban, of all things, paper straws. So,
not getting into political debate, but for goodness sake. So he's banned paper straws, so they're back to plastics, presumably.
I presume they're going back to plastic. As somebody that very occasionally uses a paper straw, I do share the frustration of society that paper straws are not nearly as good as plastic, and half the time a paper straw be getting used at McDonald's where it's in a plastic cup anyway, and it's like you do really wonder why we've targeted plastic straws. But it did get me thinking about what other things the packaging stroke government agents have done to piss off the consumer. So changing plastic straws to paper straws was one that occurred to me. Wooden spoons was another. People hate the taste of wooden spoons. So the hack round that is to carry a teaspoon with you. That's what I do nowadays. You just carry a wee teaspoon, and then you don't need to get your disposable ones. What other things, Jane? Do you know? Are you aware of that?
Those bottle tops we talked about? I'm sure we talked about those bottle tops ages ago, and the plastic ones that are linked onto the plastic bottles. I mean, you can understand why. We did talk about those. I remember.
You know what they would do much. They would do much better. You know what they could have done with this in the same way as charities used to collect cans to generate money. They should have, what the manufacturers should have done was say, we'll pay a price per tonne for just pure plastic bottles, and get all the wee kids groups just to collect plastic bottles and have a return scheme, so you just get the pure plastic lids, because they're actually quite good quality plastic, and they're normally quite a pure source of plastic. So the other ones that I spotted somebody bemoaning on Facebook, like as we're sitting with colds at the moment, these wee packs of 10 tissues you get in the plastic wrapper are really handy for carrying about, but some of the manufacturers are now selling it with a paper outer, and as somebody said, that falls apart. The handbag, well, I don't carry a handbag, but for ladies, the handbag, and then you're left with 5 scrappy tissues that just end up going in the bin.
Yeah.
So something that's meant to protect resource, actually, because it doesn't look after the product, it ends up damaging the resource before you can actually use it.
Yeah, and I would also say these film lids, right? Sometimes you get dips or coleslaw or stuff like that, and they used to have like proper lids on them, plastic lids. So you use a bit, and then you put the lid back on again, and you could keep it for a bit longer. Now they got these like plastic, film lids, and you can't put them back on again properly, and then your stuff doesn't stay as fresh for as long. Very annoying.
But then that's them trying to cut down the amount of plastic. So the manufacturers are saving by they're saying we're not using as much plastic, but they're using more plastic that can't be recycled, like the films.
Yeah.
What you need to do to Jane is go to IKEA and buy these wee flexible lids you can buy and you can stretch over the top.
Well, I have got quite a few actually. I do have some.
I've only got ones that go in a circular thing, not in a square thing. Actually, now
I've got both. I've got square and circle ones. They're all good actually.
I was impressed with. I can't actually remember which manufacturer, but I spotted it on TV the other day. Tuna chunks. You buy your tins of 4 tuna chunks, and they're quite often they're wrapped in a plastic film to keep them together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're now sort of threaded together. So you just twist them to get the top tin off.
That's killed you because Michael's...
That to me, that's a good invention. So I suppose what we're looking for is from listeners either things that piss you off that have changed, like the ones we just mentioned, or new inventions that are actually quite positive, like the tuna chunks.
Yeah.
So please share on either our social media or hello@rubbish.co.uk.
And have we not had somebody who actually likes your idea, Alistair, of the back to the rant on public benches? And I think the last time you were talking about instead of putting all your scabby flowers on there or nice flowers and leaving them scabby or whatever, actually having a charity donation, sitting on your bench, doing you could have like a QR code, zap it, sit there, kind of donate to charity, feel really good about yourself and about the person on that bench, knowing that they've done something useful.
Absolutely. I was past one the other day actually, and I should have actually stopped and take a photograph, but it was awfully busy, so I felt a bit embarrassed standing there taking the photo. But it was my prime example of how to ruin a bench and make it unsittable by anybody else by putting crap in it. So it was Robert Robb, who was in episode 30. So Robert Robb's manager, Waste Resource and Street Scene at North Ayrshire Council. So he did message and say, I quite like that idea. We should try to push that out. So if you're in a council and you're the one issuing the park benches, maybe something to think about. can you put a wee QR code in it and a link to the family's chosen charity, and a wee message to say, please don't leave plastic flowers on the bench.
Yeah, donate
We
instead.
could start a wee campaign, a wee rubbish talk campaign here, Jane.
We could, at least we've got one person who likes the idea,
Right, absolutely.
and he's in a position to do something about it. To be fair,
one at a time. One at a
Yeah.
time. I did chat that Rob does sit in or his council is in the Waste Management Network. So I said, there you go. There's a wee project for the Waste Management Network. But,
absolutely. They must all have issues, though. Everywhere's got issues with, having to do something with, flowers or teddies or whatever it is.
I was actually, now we're talking councils, a wee shout out to Perth Council, Perth and Ross Council. I was up there last Friday and I was out walking about, and the litter collection guy, the bin collection guy, was actually going along the street and he was scraping and brushing all the crap out of the road verge on this part of the street, and not even that busy a part of the street. So for all the people that live in areas where there is an endless amount of crap in the road verge that never seems to get swept up, Perth and Carnarvon are doing it, and they've got people doing it as well as road sweepers. So
very good. Shout out to
for
Perth and
Perth and Carnarvon there. So I think that's us, Jane, because we're not feeling that enthusiastic at the moment. I remember we don't want to talk for too long, so
no.
Just a wee shout out to on the back of Rebecca's episode. We have got a few new listeners and international listeners and so on. And I believe we're now on TikTok, Jane.
Yeah, apparently so, which is, I just have to remember to put my makeup and my lippy on now, just in case Mia decides to say, we'll put a little bit of you on there, Jane. Whoa.
I'm not quite sure I've got the face for it either, but we'll see. So if you've not seen it, we are sharing little clips from Rubbish Talk episodes each week, either on the TikTok account or I think we're also doing it on the Rubbish Talk LinkedIn page. So if you're not following it, give us a wee follow. So this week we had, as I said at the start, Anthony Burns from an organisation called ACS. So we're stretching the point of waste management slightly here, because what ACS is actually a clothing company, but they're a circular clothing company, as in you don't buy the clothes, you rent the clothes. So we had a really fascinating chat with Anthony in terms of what they're trying to do, how they're trying to be more sustainable, and how they change that culture of, people like myself having far too many clothes in their wardrobe that we don't actually need, and the sort of carbon impact from these. So over to myself, Jane and Tony.
Hi Tony, how are you? Welcome to Rubbish Talk.
I'm very well, thank you. Glad to be on and get invited to have a blather with you both.
That's what it's all about, good chit chat. Me and Alistair, I think I'm changing my job title to professional chit chat, to be fair.
We can manage a bit of chit-chat.
Yeah, we do chit-chat. So we're going to go through a lot of things, and I think we were talking earlier about your Vibes Awards that you've had. So I'll be asking you a bit more about those at some point if you haven't already brought them up. The first question I've got here is tell us who you currently work for, and a bit of background about the organisation. So what do you do?
Well, I'm the Chief Operating Officer at a business called ACS. ACS stands for Advanced Clothing Solutions. So what's our mission, more strategic, is we're trying to transition the fashion industry to a more sustainable place. How are we going to do that? Well, we are trying to accelerate the adoption of circular business models. We enable these circular business models, and circular business models, in many ways, they are inherently sustainable, but what we're trying to do is deliver them in a sustainable way via strong environmental and social agenda. So, circular business models, what are they? Well, they decouple economic growth from the extraction of natural virgin resources by reusing many items. If you think about it, the backbone of our business was clothing rental. We started that in 1997, and we're renting items for black tie events and weddings. If you think of that in Scotland, most people can relate to renting a kilt for a wedding or a black tie event. And it works well because it's, a whole kilt outfit could cost £1,000, and we don't all run about kilts on a regular basis. However, it's a good thing to have for an event, so it works well for rental, for one-off rentals, and we rented thousands of kilts and Highland wear outfits in 1997 and 2006. I joined ACS in 2006, and then we started that year renting formal wear, suits, dinner jackets, top hat and tails for a day at the races, for weddings as well, and black tie events. And we supplied this product into a variety of multiple and independent retailers across the UK. Everything from Slater's menswear to Debenhams, Burton's, Austin Reed, TM Lewin. And what you'll probably think about, some of those businesses that I mentioned there have shut down because the high street's not in a great place. So at one point we were shipping 365,000 menswear outfits every year, which equates to, if you think about 7 items in a men's suit, jacket, tie, hanky, waistcoat, trouser. Highland wear outfit is about 13 items. So we're shipping millions of items and bringing them all back and cleaning them, repairing them, sanitising them every year. It's not as popular as it once was, that model. However, we're still shipping 200,000 outfits every year, so it's still big volumes. But rentals sort of changing as well from men's formal wear. There's many more products are now becoming more prevalent. You can rent everything from dresses to subscription clothing for men, for women, for babies as well. We rent everything as well, from tents to wetsuits to ski wear. So you can rent all these things, and probably the biggest barrier to the adoption of these models is people don't know about them. There's a lack of awareness on them, and that's one of the things we're trying to change. As well as rental, we clean and repair items on behalf of brands and retailers. If you think of all the stuff we buy online, we buy lots of fashion online, and there's a very high returns rate. Tried things on, they don't fit. And then when we try them on, we get fake tan, makeup on them, we burst buttons, we burst seams on them. Some people try them on, wear them to whatever they're doing at the weekend, and then return them as well.
So the interview, the job interview.
So then the brand or retailer has these items to deal with that are dirty or damaged. We step in, we clean and repair them, and that mitigates the use of things like jobbers and these items potentially going to landfill or incineration. We also do a similar thing, but then we resell these items on behalf of our partners. We resell them in marketplaces, everything from eBay to Best Day Collective. We resell them on white label websites, which we build for our partners, which sits on the main customer facing website, and there's a little button that says resale. And what we do is we digitize the cleaned up and repaired item by taking down all the particulars about it and the details. We photograph it and then we sell it on behalf. And resale is really growing because it's, in some ways, it's a little bit more like the linear business model, and brands and retailers can get their head around it, and they take all these items in their supply chain that are problematic, give them to us, and then we can resell them on behalf. We also offer, lastly, take-back schemes. So maybe things in your wardrobe that you don't wear or use anymore, we can take them off you. We can either give you a voucher for the brand, the retailer you're working with, or we can give you money for it, depending what it is, and we'll resell them on your behalf. So take-back is another model which is really growing in the UK and across the globe.
That's really impressive, actually. I like that idea. And I think you're right. People don't know about these things, do they? They're not.
No, they don't. We have been on a journey to try and raise awareness. Our difficulty is we started the business and it was predominantly B2B. So we're working with brands and retailers, and we were a little bit dependent on what they do. And some of these brands, they have retail models, so they're selling product as well. Renting is good for them and it has worked, but they have other priorities. So what we've tried to do over the years is actually market ACS more and do more to tell people about the models that we offer and the alternatives to what they currently do. But that ties in nicely to one of our biggest goals, is proving that the models, they're not only sustainable environmentally and socially, which we can touch on, but they're actually better for your purse or your wallet. We can offer you much more choice and at a lower cost, rather than having to buy things, and then you've got the impact of buying that item and all the carbon emissions and water and potentially virgin materials that were used to create to manufacture those items.
Yeah, because you're right. Because if you always used to hire kilts or suits or whatever for weddings and things like that, and I suppose it was more of a, just to say this, whether it's sexist or not, but it was more of a man thing. You know, you would hire a kilt, you would hire your top hat and tails or whatever. Whereas the woman would have spent a fortune on a wedding dress and bridesmaids dresses. Whereas, to some extent, you would wear a kilt more times than you'd wear a wedding dress, hopefully. But yeah, I can see that it does make sense, and I suppose you have to branch out into all. I didn't realise you did the tents though. That's quite a good idea, renting tents and ski stuff as well.
Yeah, well, ski stuff. I'm off skiing a week on Saturday. I'm taking my wife and my son, and my wife always likes to wear expensive kit, so she's all in rental this year. I'm just quite happy with it, rather than have to buy something new to stand at an après bar most of the day. And my son, children grow at a rapid rate. Why would you want to buy clothing which for 1 week of the year you might wear it and then next year it doesn't fit? So it works really well. But just going back to one of your other points for women, yes, obviously the Highland wear kilt model doesn't work because it's for men. But now my wife gets subscription clothing for All Saints and for LK Bennett. So you get a couple of items at a time, you pay a fee every month, and it's like a revolving wardrobe. And that model in the UK, it's been quite slow to sort of grow. Strangely enough, it's very prevalent in other geographies. In the US, it's really popular. There's a different sort of culture of ownership in the US compared to the UK. We tend to like to own things, so we buy things, but the model where you can get multiple items, you can change them around, you can get heavy coats in the winter, and then you can swap them for dresses, skirts, blouses in the summer. And it's less for events, it's more about day-to-day clothing. That's how subscription clothing will have a real positive impact on the fashion industry over time when there's a degree of adoption.
I think it's quite a big behavioural change though, isn't it? Like you say, people like to own things. The fact that it sits in their wardrobe and they only wear it twice a year is kind of irrelevant. Actually...
But that drives me mad, though, Jane. Like, I look at my wardrobe and think, I've hardly worn a proper shirt to work for the last 5 years, and I've probably got about 30 or 40 shirts in the wardrobe, and reality is I'm not going to wear 22 of them.
I know, there's a charity shop down the road, Alistair.
I know, but then we know from our side the textile market's not great. The reuse and how they're recovering that stuff is not in a great place, and it's the carbon impact of clothing's massive. So I was interested, Tony, what you're saying about the your business fundamental is business to business, but really your shift you think you need to make is business to consumer. As Jane knows, I was doing the Help to Grow programme at University of West Scotland, and a couple of your staff were on it as well. And that was, listening to them talk about the challenge they had as a business in terms of where do you position themselves was actually really, really interesting. Do you stick to being business to business and hide behind other big players, or do you really focus on what should be the big market, the business consumer one, but potentially it's a harder market to capture?
It's a really interesting debate, and we discuss it on a regular basis. because if you start to potentially go direct to customers, you cut across what you're doing with your brand partners. So it's a fine balance. We probably need to do a bit of both. We maybe go to the end customer and we go via the brand, because we ship direct to the end customer on a regular basis, but it's via the brand partners that we work with, rather than an ACS parcel turning up at someone's door. But there's certainly a view that we should do some things, particularly resale direct to the customer as well. But if you compare that with marketplaces, the big marketplaces, they have got millions of eyes on product. So it's a interesting debate.
Mm-hmm. And talking about kilts, my claim to fame is I got a kilt outfit for my 18th birthday, which I still managed to fit into. I am in the last holes of the buckles, but I do still fit into.
Well, my mother bought me a kilt outfit from a company called Gilt Edged in the Salt Market in Glasgow when I was 21, and ironically, that's now part of the ACS business. We own that one store is the one store we have that rents Highlandwear direct to the consumer. So I was there well before I'd even heard of ACS.
There you go. So we normally ask all our guests what brought them into the world of waste management, but I'm thinking you maybe don't see yourself as being involved in waste management. You're seeing yourself as more the sustainability market, I would think. Is that?
Yeah, well, if I rewind, I had an engineering degree, and then I did a logistics master's, and that led me into logistics roles and supply chain roles and third-party logistics companies and in-house operations for brands and retailers. But the fashion industry is one that I came into fashion logistics, and it was rental. And rental initially is really quite difficult or very complex compared to your normal third-party logistics or a normal brand's operation, because you get stock from a container, you de-stuff it, you store it in a warehouse, you pick and pack it, send it to a store or send it to a customer, and you get some returns, but it's quite straightforward. We have a very complex model. You've got inventory that you take multiple orders for throughout the year. I order a pair of trousers in May, you order the same pair of trousers in July, and some other one people order it in August. These trousers come back in and out multiple times. They get changed, they get damaged, they don't get returned on time. So it's a very complex, complex operation. But in terms of waste management, well, in some ways we're trying to mitigate getting to a stage where we actually create the waste. But at some point we do have true end of life situations where we try charities, we do all sorts of stuff, but then we get to a stage, what do we do with product which we can't use? And we're excited about all the things like digital product passports. We're doing multiple trials just now with different organisations and different types of DPP to allow us to then maybe track what's happened to an item throughout its journey, throughout its life, and maybe share the details of those items with the brand, with the manufacturer, that they might be able to then change how they work to make items more robust and design them for longevity. But at the same time, if we do get an item which is true end of life, we can maybe use DPP as a tool to then sort product to give it the most appropriate home ethical recycling, turning it into fabric or thread to create new garments. We're actually working with a company just now where through end of life we're shredding the items, and that product, that shredded textiles, are being used to create dog beds, which is much better than some of the other alternatives.
Mm-hmm. The cynic in me says that the clothes manufacturers don't want to make the garments last longer. Is that just me putting my cynical hat on?
Potentially. As we work with lots of brands and retailers, I couldn't possibly comment. there might be that, or it might be that they're trying to make some of these items really cheap, so they're not going to spend a lot of time with robust manufacturing processes. And then that ties me into another thing. One of the questions you've maybe potentially posed is like, how do we change this? How do we change how, we over manufacture, we have items which aren't robust, and we need to, at ACS, we're trying to do things a sustainable way from a people perspective. We pay a living wage for living hours, or we're working towards a living pension. If brands and retailers across the globe and organisations all paid a living wage, it's there'd probably be more good rationale to make items which are maybe better quality and actually are designed for longevity rather than more the sort of take, make, dispose model that sort of is prevalent.
I think am I right in thinking some of the big outdoor brands, the waterproof jacket type brands, have moved in this direction in terms of sort of free repair service and send your jacket back and we'll fix a zip for you and so on. There's quite a few that doing that type of thing now.
There are, and we actually, some of them do it in-house. We're actually working with some brands that provide that service as well, and we're doing it for them. For example, we've gone through a very in-depth testing process to improve how one proofs garments. When I use some of the different products at home over the years, I don't get great results on proofing, cleaning and proofing my waterproofs for outdoor use.
I just discovered the other day, Tony, that once you wash it, you're meant to then put it in tumble dryer at 30 degrees, which I have never done and never realised I had to do.
You are the epitome, just like I was before I get into this ACS, of your actually check based on a scale how waterproof a garment is pre and post treatment, so we can take it from zero, no proofing at all, to 100%, and that's garments that are relatively old and maybe they're broken down to an extent, but we can actually get them back to 100% waterproof, which we're pretty chuffed about.
There you go.
That's good. There we go. That's what you need to do.
No, absolutely. I need to try my washing in stuff and then put it in the tumble dryer next time. That's what I really need to do to see if it works or not.
This tumble dryer thing now, do you not have my tumble dryer just tumble dries. It doesn't do it at different temperatures as far as I know. That must be a fancy tumble dryer.
I've not thought about that, but you're making it really complicated now, Jane. I think you must have to keep tumble drying it or opening the door or something.
I think we would just have to give it to Tony and get him to sort it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So thinking about your previous roles or your existing role, Tony, any sort of favourite projects spring to mind? I know I've been around, it's a good few years since I've been around your place, but it's absolutely fascinating in terms of the level of detail and how stuff flows around your factory floor is just, it's incredible, and it's well worth if anybody's interested, it's certainly well worth a visit.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we moved into this facility in 2012. We were about 8 miles along the road towards Glasgow Business Park. We're at Eurocentral now. And the facility was built in 2007. I think there were some government incentives to build here, and they built a whole park, and virtually none of it was occupied till about 2012. We were one of the first tenants in here. It was an empty shell, the building we moved into, and we fitted it out, mezzanines, automation, steam pipes, boilers, compressors. One of it was a really enjoyable role over, best part of 2 years from planning to actually getting up and running and go live. One of the challenges we had is we built it to future-proof it to put additional floors in. So we put 8-meter piles into the slab, cut through holes and then put 8-meter piles in, concrete and steel. And when we got a piling rig in to do that, it wasn't working. it was hitting man-made material. So the building where we are, if you might remember way back, this area, Eurocentral, had Chunghwa picture tubes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And I think when they demolished it, they just they spread a lot of the debris. So when the piling rig were in, it was hitting concrete, steel, and all sorts of man-made. So they get a different piling rig in the builders, and that piling rig was even bigger, and it kicked out dust and debris out through the top of the piling rig, which then spread across the entire facility during the sort of build. So these were the challenges, the mess it created, and the delays. But it was a really great project back in 2012.
Sounds good. Purpose built. Well, you've made it into your own building, haven't you?
Yes. Also, back in 2014, we set up a facility in the US, and it was tuxedo rental as well. So we went to Memphis in Tennessee. Why Memphis, you may ask? It's where a big distribution hub. FedEx are based there, and you can hit 66% of US zip codes by road in 2 days from Memphis. So we used that as a distribution facility for tuxedo rental in the US, and we brought on one of the second biggest independent tux rental company in the US, moved them into the facility in Memphis, moved them from Texas, and then moved another one from Sioux City, which sits in the junction or the border of Nebraska, South Dakota, and Iowa. Another big tux rental company, moved them all into Memphis over a 4-year period. So that was another exciting project as part of what we've done at this year's.
Sounds good. So what about the worst thing? Have you had any disasters or anything funny that you've thought, oh, I need to tell people about that one?
I can just think of these conveyor systems you've got in that workshop just going awry one day.
They do go awry at times from time to time, but generally because they can pick 5,000 items per hour. So when they do get back up and running, they catch up really quickly. So we have had some downtime over the years, but the conveyors probably haven't been the biggest challenge. One of I'd say our biggest challenges was post-COVID. So there were no events allowed for best part of 2 years, or very limited numbers. And most of our business is predicated on weddings and functions. So at the time, it was very quiet with a skeleton team during furlough, and it was very quiet. I think in May 22, or is it? I'm now lost track of when COVID was. When UK government released the function, said everyone could go out again. Our volumes per week at that stage went from 40 outfits per week in April that year. I think it was that 21 or 22, to 10,000 a week in early July. So our challenge was bringing on people to realise that growth, and also making sure we had the inventory, because everyone didn't get married over an 18-month, 2-year period, then all decided to get married in June, July, August the following year, and we didn't have the inventory for it. So we had lots of people challenges, lots of productivity challenges, and lots of inventory challenges, and we are dealing with people's weddings, and there's lots of emotion about these things, can get pretty difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you'd be like, oh yeah, of course we've got these matching kilts for your wedding. They haven't come back from Joe Bloggs' wedding last week. Yeah, no, I can imagine that.
Like, it sounds, Tony, as if your business model, you've really looked at the environmental side, the sustainability bit. Do you think your sort of views on waste management have changed and over the years just because of that knowledge? And I suppose how do we get the public to engage a bit more with the sustainability agenda?
It's a difficult one. I think to really see change, we need legislation. We need, I know in the EU, there's EU strategy in textiles. In the UK, we've been speaking to DEFRA to help shape the UK policies. Things like shoes will be included in the UK strategy. I believe DEFRA are going to put a report Q1 this calendar year, which will hopefully then be digested by government and put into policy. But we need legislation to realise change. We've been talking on a regular basis to multiple politicians at Westminster, at Holyrood. We've been talking about different policies to realise change. What we've looked at, we'd like a removal of VAT. That would be one of our big things. That would help level the playing field with some of the linear business models. That would be removal of VAT for sustainable fashion. There's different ways one could measure that, and we've got different proposals on that. We've also looked at a salary sacrifice scheme. Now, I got an EV car, salary sacrifice. I've had multiple bikes via salary sacrifice schemes. We've proposed a salary sacrifice for sustainable fashion. What would be to stop someone, you pay a fee every month, take off your top line, and it allows you to purchase sustainable fashion options. So we continue to bang the drum about this and see what could be done to help sort of level the playing field.
I suppose that's the thing. Everything's fast fashion, isn't it? And you've got your Primark and H&M and all of these places that are just churning out cheap T-shirts and that kind of thing. And actually being able to reusing good quality clothing does make more sense. It's just getting the behaviour change, getting people's mind around the fact that they don't actually have to own it. I like the idea actually of having a subscription and having, a couple of pairs of jeans or new shirts or something every month and then sending them back again. I quite like that idea.
The subscription, you can actually, you could change it every week. So for your fee every month, you can change your items once a week. You could have a dress and a jacket for an event at the weekend, to run out at the weekend in town. And then you could have jeans and a blouse during the week. You can just swap them on a regular basis, and that's the flexibility of it. And it also gives you an opportunity to try fashion with no commitment, because you might not want to buy a £400 dress and then you wear it once, or you're like, I actually didn't really like that, or maybe that's not what I would normally wear, I'm not going to spend the money on it. Whereas if it's subscription, you'll try it and then, okay, I liked it or didn't like it, but you don't need to worry about the fact that you spent a fortune on it.
Yeah.
I can see Jane Googling away here, signing up in the background as we're talking, Tony.
I'm thinking, I'm looking at my wardrobe thinking, yeah, it's looking a bit drab.
You do have a bit of an uphill struggle, Tony, because the whole fashion industry is predicated towards selling as cheap as possible, as much as possible, and so on. And I think the logic is, if the whole carbon impact of that fabric was taken into account, it should be way more expensive than that actually is. But that's a hard thing to change, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. What we need to prove, because most of brands and retailers, I think they do, they want to be more sustainable. I think everybody wants to be. I don't think anyone, maybe apart from Donald Trump, really doesn't want to do the right thing. However, what we need to do is prove that we have got models which are commercially attractive for our brand partners. And we can prove this. We've got case studies, we've got calculators, evidence that if you resale items with us, we can get you a much better outcome than you would if you had gone down a different route, jobbing them off and things like that. With rental, it's a much more difficult sell, but we can also evidence it commercially. That if you rent an item with us, if you give it to us and we rent it on your behalf, you rent it 3 times, you're actually better off than you will be from selling the item and selling it once. And what you've got to remember a lot of the time is of every 3 items, one's sold at full price, one's discounted, and one never sells at all. So you start to look at the average of all that. If you can rent an item, you've still got an asset at the end of it which could potentially be resold, but that item is also rented multiple times and you've got an ongoing revenue stream.
Brilliant. No, it sounds fascinating. I'm not sure the rental scheme would work for me because I tend to wear my tracksuit bottoms and my shorts all the time. So
yeah,
I might have to rule myself
fashion's
out.
past him, Burnley.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the website now. Yeah.
Well, what about Tony? You obviously a busy work life. How do you get away from the work?
I quite like. Well, I do like my job.
You like the work?
So I like my work. It brings structure. It's easier than not working. But yeah, I like to ride bikes and outdoors, things like that. That's not working. That makes me happy.
Jane used to ride a bike.
I did.
You've been out recently, Jane?
No. I've been ill. I've got a cough, and it keeps raining.
A road bike, Tony, or a mountain bike, or
I've got 7 bikes, I think.
7?
Oh,
7.
that's a serious
You obviously know the
cyclist.
equation, Tony, don't you?
N+1.
N+1 is the number of bikes you need in your life.
Yeah.
Tell my wife that regularly.
So come on, you need to list through your 7 bikes. What type of bikes they are?
I've got a track bike. I've got a couple of mountain bikes. I've got think 3 road bikes. One's on the turbo, and I've got a cyclocross bike. I think that's 7.
My
I think that was 7. Well,
do you rent out your bikes, Tony, as part of your business, or is it
no?
They're yours. You're keeping them.
Is there a favourite? Which is the favourite?
They're all good.
So how do you with your 3 road bikes? How do you decide which bike you're taking?
Well, one's on the turbo, and one's a summer one. One's a winter one.
I did one for the winter and because it got all salty and gritty and so on. There we go.
Yeah. I've got 3 bikes and I feel like I should have some more now.
Yeah,
but they are sitting in the shed, getting a bit rusty now, which is a bit disappointing. I need to get my act together. Okay, what about your current role, Tony? What's your current role? What are you trying to achieve in that? What's next for you? What's next for the company? Where do you see yourself?
Well, linked to the business, I think we'd like to do more over and above what we do in the UK. We're starting to ship a little bit of items to the EU, then Brexit came along and stopped that. So we are looking at how we expand beyond these shores. But these things are expensive setting up, so maybe it's we partner with an organisation in the EU to try and do a little bit of what we do here. But what we've got here is unique. There's nowhere else on earth, I believe, that delivers all these circular business models, rental, resale, repair, e-commerce, all under one roof. There's certainly big facilities that do certain circular business models as a standalone, but not all of these. So I'd like to see what we can do and the impact we can have beyond the UK. But also, I'd like to continue to try and make a difference environmentally and socially. Socially is one of the things that probably haven't mentioned yet. Our impact on our people and our local communities is really important. We try and recruit from a disadvantaged background, partly because it's the right thing to do as a good corporate citizen, but also because there's a tight labour market and we need to mitigate the challenges of a tight labour market. So that's what we did a few years ago. We set up ACS as an SVQ, Scottish Vocational Qualifications Training Centre, where we can offer VQs in textile care and logistics, and that underpins our apprenticeship programme now. So we can basically own talent pipeline. So we've actively gone out, we've tried to recruit everyone from, we've got refugees on site, 10% of the staff are refugees from Syria, Afghanistan, Ukraine, We've got staff with disabilities who have been profoundly important for us. We've done a really good job. We can upskill them, and we are working with Scottish Prison Service with the prisoners on site, ex-offenders and current offenders from the prisoner placement scheme. Timson's were probably the biggest proponent of that over the years, so it's that sort of model. But we've also, we're hoping to work with the community justice team to support people who have been given a sentence and to do something positive in terms of the community, is maybe try and help them and provide training to these sort of people. So these are all the things from maybe EU and try and expand the business beyond the UK, but also continue to focus on our environmental and social agenda.
And that's why you've won lots of Vibes Awards, isn't it, Tony, for all this social engagement and environmental circular economy, Scottish Environment Business Awards through SEPA and all this.
Yeah, we've won a few Vibes Awards. We are a B Corp, which is a framework to measure environmental and social impact. We had the highest score in Scotland, I think, when we first got our B Corp. We're getting reaccreditations now. It's after every 3 years, so we'll go again, try and improve that. But we also won a King's Award for excellence too. So we were the first company in one of our batch of the first companies in the UK to win a King's Award for excellence. We won a few Glasgow Business Awards, including Glasgow's Most Outstanding Business, just back last year as well. So,
fantastic! You must be really proud.
Yes,
of you and your team.
It reflects what we all do as a team, and everything we're doing to try and grow circular business models, be profitable, but also focus on people and planet.
So have you got any facts you want to share from your business? You've shared quite a lot, and I'm actually looking at your website here, and I'm quite impressed here.
You meant to do the prep before the interview, Jane. Come on.
Well, yes, I have. I got it up. 1,400 jackets go through our steam tunnel every hour. 45,000 garments cleaned per week by the team. It's like, wow, 45,000. Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Here's one for you. So, if I were to ask you what's the biggest barrier to you, but also for most people to trying out rental or resale, what would put you off renting something, Jane?
The faff of having to send it back.
Okay, that's one. We try and get good logistics options, use bike couriers and different things to try and make that job easy. And that is it's not on average the top reason. The top reason is usually people are worried about odour and germs. I'm not going to wear someone else's sweaty trousers or a stinky blouse that someone else has worn. That's generally the biggest barrier to adoption of pre-loved and rental clothing. So what we have done is about well over 10 years ago now, we introduced ozone technology. And previously, when you clean items, we were washing and dry cleaning items, and they're energy intensive, they're water intensive, they're use a lot of chemicals, and over time you degrade the garments. You end up, you hit the end of life quicker, because of mechanical action, heat and drums of liquid. So we brought in ozone technology, and ozone sanitizes items, kills germs and removes odour. Great, you say, but how effective is it? Well, it does it to a medical grade standard. So if I put this into perspective, the air round about us all just now, there's hydrogen, there's nitrogen, and there's oxygen. So what we do is we create, when the O2 is oxygen, we create O3 in a sealed container, which is ozone. And that ozone is unstable and wants to break back to oxygen and O2 and a single oxygen atom. And that single oxygen atom attaches to germs and odour and kills them. It oxidizes with them in a process called cell lysing, and it kills germs. So if I try and put that into perspective, how well does it do it? Now, if I were to measure germs on a good food preparation area, think of a good food last time you went out for dinner, where did you go? Good food prep area. The germs on a centimetre squared of area for food prep, you'd have been between 10 and 100 CFUs. CFU is a colony forming unit. So 10 to 100. Our garments post-treatment in ozone have got fewer than 2 CFUs per centimetre squared. So our clothing's much, much cleaner than the excellent food preparation area. And that's probably what people are not aware of when they're renting. They're thinking, oh, I'm going to get something a bit sweaty. We actually spoke to government and different people about sanitising workwear, sanitising PPE during COVID. And we couldn't get it over the line, but it's one of these things that made perfect sense rather than buying new and throwing away, particularly when there's a shortage, is let's sanitise the items.
So does that, ask a stupid question here, but that sanitises them, but does it clean the dirt and stuff off and lipstick? And
what you find with most rental and resale is 80-90% of items don't have stains on them, but you do need to make sure that you're giving people an item which is free from odour and free from germs. So what you do is you put them all through the chamber, and then you look for the stains and the defects. We're actually bringing in some really good AI just now to support us with scaling that process, taking some of the labour costs out, and taking the cost out, because if we can do that, then what you start to do is bring into scope more items at a lower price point, which previously wouldn't have been the commercial rationale to clean and repair them and resell them. So if you can get them and cut the costs out and become more effective and more productive by using AI, it could be exciting for us in the future.
Sounds fascinating, Tony. I can see you on a wee visit, Jane. I think you need to get us a wee visit to the factory, because I think you would be amazed. So last couple of questions for me, Tony. We always ask somebody for their favourite piece of slang or dialect to use, and you're in deepest, darkest Lanarkshire, so I'm sure you hear some on the factory floor.
Well, I'm always this is very boring, but saying reduce, reuse, and recycle. But as you point out, I am in deepest, darkest Lanarkshire. We have many people from Lark Hall here, one particular person who you need a translator for him, and he says things like poo, which means pool, and other weird and wonderful words that you couldn't put them in front of a visitor. They probably wouldn't understand most of what he says. So yes, certainly lots of slang and dialect out here.
I could imagine. And what about, I'm going to give you a magic wand to do something, and I'm thinking you'll use it for your sectors, for either your sector or the big bad world of waste management. What would you like to use it for?
Use it for both. I think I would campaign for a living wage globally, because I'm sure that would help resolve the problem of overproduction, and it would ensure that items are made better. And we would, I know this is a problem about waste, but what we'd probably do is we'd think more about trying to recycle items and use that material again, rather than search for virgin materials, as it would change the dynamic between recycled material and virgin material. So I'm all for a living wage.
We've never had that one before, Tony. So that's a high level one for rubbish talk.
I think that links through to everything, doesn't it?
Well, I was thinking that if you've not had a chance to listen, Rebecca Henderson, who we had on 2 weeks ago for episode 56, she worked for Waste Aid, and that was looking at waste management in developing countries. And I think there's probably stuff she was saying that would feed into some of the ideas you've got in terms of the real living wage around the world. So well done.
Yeah. And lastly, we always ask for, what advice would you give to the younger generation coming into the sector? How can the younger generation come in and make their mark and become you, Tony, what would you tell them?
I'm not sure whether that is very wise for anyone. I think well, the best thing is choose organisations to work for, or choose organisations where you purchase things for that actually really live their values, and ones which don't greenwash, because via our own choices we can have a profound impact in terms of what we do.
Yeah.
That sounds
Good
great.
point.
I must add as well, Tony, the last time I was round your place, I was really impressed about your SPQ qualifications and your training centre and how you done that in terms of giving, as well as giving people jobs, you were training them, you were giving them qualifications. It was quite impressive. So,
well, if you think of many industries, but if I can walk down Buchanan Street or street in Glasgow and buy a T-shirt for a fiver or things like that, the chances of the people in the supply chain that made that T-shirt being paid a living wage very slim. Yeah. And then there's also, on your point, is it's unlikely that if they're not paying a living wage, the organisations, then are they really investing in their people in training and development? Everyone goes through our facility leaves to at least some internationally recognised vocational qualification or a foundation or modern apprenticeship, which if they stay, great, because they're training them anyway. But if they don't, then they are become more marketable, and hopefully allows them to continue to maybe go and get another green job somewhere.
Yeah. Perfect. No, I think that's a good way to finish, Tony. That's us. We've exhausted all our questions of you. So from me, thank you very, very much.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. That was great. I'm searching on your website for my subscription.
Jane's going to be signing up. She's going to. Is it the posh formal do set up you're going for, Jane, or the routine day-to-day one?
It's a fancy sort of jeans and that kind of thing. Well, jackets. You're
most welcome to come and visit. I'd love you to come and have a wander around, give you a cuppa.
No, that'd be good. I have promised on the back of the Train to Gain programme to come and see the guys that were on the course. So I just need to get that fitted in. So
get a team outing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Tony.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.